Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to show you how to modify your Magnum throttle body, at least the 360 Magnum. That's what I'm playing with and that's what I have. I've got a couple extra throttle bodies, so I'm going to do a little playing. Now, what I found is that these are, I think when you look online, they're 48 millimeter or something, but if we check this, I hope you guys can see this. I can. The battery's about dead, but this is a, let's see, it's 50.3 millimeters and the sides are 49.78 millimeters on the throttle blade. In the stock one, this is a stock throttle blade. If you go to the bottom side, 50 millimeters. Alright, so it's a 50 millimeter. You go to the top, well, you can't reach these in there. So we've got our dividers. We set it to where it just touches right in the center. Just touching. We take those. 47.7. So right now, with the stock throttle body, you've got a 47.7 or 48 millimeter throttle body. Because it's closed off, it's got this shape just in front of the throttle blade. Now, I don't know if this is what they did, if they made all of the throttle bodies the same for the V8s. I don't know if the 318 has a smaller throttle blade. I don't know. I'll look that up later. It says V8, so it's a V8 cast throttle body. I know the V6 is smaller. So I don't know if they kept this small and just machined this side for if it was a 360 or 318. I don't know. I don't believe so. But you could open this up all the way to a 50 millimeter. For example, here's a LT1 throttle body. It is a 48 millimeter. I think it's actually a true 48. Let's see. Yeah, 48. So the throttle blades are probably a little larger, you know, because they're sitting like this. They're never, well, it's not just sitting flat in this bore. It's sitting at an angle about like that. So it's got to be a little longer to close that hole. So what we're going to do is open this up and see how far we can go. We do not want to touch where the throttle blade is right now. I'm going to leave that alone. I do think it's a pretty small angle. This is at a small angle. It actually looks pretty decent. What I want to do is open up the other side and then maybe see if I can lose some of this angle on the throttle blade and then come in here and open this up. That's kind of hard because I'll be doing it by hand, but I think you could get a good bit more area without having to go to a bigger throttle blade just by changing the angle of this, by changing the throttle stop. Now, these aren't hard to get apart. You take your sensors off. I think this is a, I think it's like a T25. So let's pull these out of here. They're kind of swedged in there on the other side. You can see where I already played to figure out how to get it apart. So we'll take these two bolts out of here. And just open up the throttle. Throttle blade comes out. Now there's nothing else holding this in. This will slide out, but what you got to watch for is on this side. On this side where it was kind of braided in, the bolts, once they went through, I guess they mushed them over. There's all these burrs. So I just took a flat file and kind of worked it over. Just held the throttle body open and kind of worked those. You don't want to just force it through. Once I worked them, the spring's not that tight on here. You can just kind of pull it out of the way. And now your throttle shaft is out. So now that this is out of the way, we can start working on this. So I'm going to get this thing quick grip to the table and get my grinding stuff ready. The only thing we've got to be careful is to not mess with where the throttle body was sealing right now. We'll tweak that later. We just want to open this up. Now, there's a lot of 52mm throttle bodies out there that you can buy. They're not too expensive. Hughes is claiming that their Big Gulp 1000 CFM throttle body is a modified factory 50mm throttle body. Now, what I've noticed most of them is they just hog it out. They'll cut this off and it's very squared edges up top. We don't want that. We want a bell mouth, as much of a trumpet as we can get. Theirs looks like theirs is clearly CNC'd or cut on a machine or whatever they do, but it's got a very nice radius. So I don't have a machine that can do that. I've been thinking about making some setups so I can center it on the drill press and then change the tooling just to hog this out or cut this out and make that nice bell mouth, but that's for later. I've got several of these to play with. Right now I just want to do what anyone can do at home with a grinder. So we'll get into it. I'm gonna get this clamped down and get the grinder ready, and we'll start measuring and start opening this thing up. So now I'm just gonna go in here and start grinding this out. I'm just going to be very careful not to go too far in. I don't want to touch the throttle blade area yet. So I'm going to set this on the stand and get to it. Alright, here's where we're at right now. I haven't touched this one. All I did was bring this straight out to 50mm. I mean, it's probably a little bigger. I haven't gone and beveled much. I haven't done a whole lot of work. I just opened it all up. So where this was tight, we're still adjust this back. Oh. Just touching right there. Look at that. That's how much we got to open it up, just with a grinder. And we haven't touched the throttle blade area. We haven't messed anything up. So I would consider this like stage 1. Nice and easy. Anybody can do that. So you can see on this side, oh, I don't know if you can see there, but I can see the stain from where it's been sitting for so long. So I didn't touch that. And the shiny spot right here is where it was. So I haven't touched that yet. I'm going to leave that alone. I'm going to catch this one up. And then what a lot of them do and what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut all this stuff off the top. I think I'm going to cut all that off the top. And then bevel everything out the best I can. Kind of like they do with the 52mm. All the other ones, they don't go too crazy. I'm going to check my thicknesses as I go with this. I'm going to try not to bust through any walls. It's not on the vacuum side of things, so if it leaks a little bit, you could JB weld it if you put a hole in it up here. But I'm going to try not to. I've got another idea for that Hughes thing where they are claiming 1000 CFM with a 50mm. Maybe if they worked every possible trick, they could get there. But I don't know. It kind of smells like bullshit to me. But I can do this for free. I've got a couple of them. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put this one on the truck when I'm done at this level. And the other one, I'm going to cut all this stuff off. And then I've got some really thick aluminum because right now we can't get that much of a bell mouth on it. And I don't have a great way to attach my intake the way I want to build the box to go under my hemi scoop. Or the big old hemi scoop. Like where I had the intake for the blower. So I've got some really thick aluminum. I'm gonna make a cover that'll bolt down with the 4 bolts and have the bolts countersunk too. And then I'm gonna go all the way through that 3/4 inch piece of aluminum and make it fairly big, so I can make my box to my filter, but also making it that thick, I'll be able to make a much nicer radius, a much larger bell mouth into the throttle body. Now, because these are so close, it's not going to be absolutely perfect, but I think I can do a pretty decent job. I'm going to try to see if we can flow these on the flow bench, because I'm curious, but I think Tim's flow bench is a 600. Now maybe you can do it a different way and use some math, or it just is what it is. But either way, I'm going to catch this up, and we'll cut this off and just see how much radius we can give it before we put a hole in it. Alright, here we are. I put these back in. When you put your throttle blades back in, just set them in, start the bolts, run them just before snug, open it up and make sure you can still wiggle the throttle blades, and then open and close it, make sure it's happy and free. You can kind of see the light through the gaps. It's not a whole lot, it's very narrow, and just make sure that they don't bind up. When it's sitting like this, there's not a lot of play. You really can't move it. When it's open, play. This is normal. It shouldn't have a whole lot of play here. A little's fine. I think mine had more play before, but because I kind of reset them, wiggled everything around, move, and kind of played with the throttle blades, it's actually more centered, I believe, a little better. So what I'm going to do now, I've noticed, and I don't know if you'll be able to see with this on my head, but I've also noticed that at wide open throttle, we are not at wide open throttle. We're really, really close. And at this angle, I can see it looking from the top, I just don't know if you guys can see it. Holding it wide open, the blades are still a little bit like this. They're still just a little bit pitched. Now looking at the profile, looking at it straight on, I don't know airflow wise that actually matters. I don't know if the difference between here and here, if anything actually cares. But we're gonna get this right. We're gonna get it straight up and down. And the way we're gonna do that is this side here. This is the stop. So we'll just shave that down a little bit, or shave the aluminum down just a little bit. We'll probably leave the aluminum alone and play with the steel, because we can make slower adjustments, where that one bump probably too far, and then you got to figure out how to put it back. So I'm going to figure out how to get this cap out of here, or I'll just adjust this or this. Now it's got an adjustment. I really want to get that cap out. So when I figure out how to get it out, I'll tell you guys. I'm going to try to take some angle out of the butterflies, flatten them out a little more, which will mean I should be able to widen this area out in the throttle body and make it bigger. But I'm going to have to go slow so that I don't mess up and go too far. And I mean, these things have idle air control. I know my motor's been at, or IAC positions, been at 80 something at idle. So if this was a little more open, the IAC is just going to go down a little bit. If you go too far, things will get weird and get erratic. But it'll be all right. Just don't go too crazy. And honestly, if at this point, I'd call this done. If you're just a beginner, you just want to get a little bit more out of what you got, there you go. You're done. You're good to go. I believe that the reason they did that the way it was, it could have been because they were cheap and lazy. I don't know. My opinion is they're using 50mm blades, and they made this hole up here 48. So it's still a 50mm blade, so this opening that much, percentage-wise, is a good bit more than if they had put a 48mm throttle blade in there, or throttle blades. So I think it would make it a little more aggressive off idle. It would be more snappy than if it was a 48. But when it's wide open, it's still only really got the characteristics of a 48mm. Kind of. I'd say it's probably still a little better. But the orifice up top being 48mm definitely choked it down. So I think that's why they did it. If I was going to guess and give a real answer for why, that's my guess. So now I'm going to start playing with getting some angle out. I got to get this plug out of here. That's going to be fun. If the bolt was up against it, there's not much to grab here either with the adjustment. So I'm just going to go at it and see what I figure out. I got it. I just used the drill, went easy with it once it busted through. It's just like a small little Welch plug. I think that's the right term. So I just went through it and then shook it upside down. The end of it fell out, and it's a T25. Now what I said earlier about the throttle blades, they are T20s. They are not T25s. T20 throttle blade, T25 idle adjustment or base adjustment. Alright, so now I'm going to start working, backing it off, seeing where it's touching, and then take a little bit, do it again, back off, see where it's touching, take a little bit. I don't want to take the throttle body blade and go all the way flat, because that would be bad. I think we still want some lean to it. I don't know what the adverse effects are. I think right now, with the lean, if it had a backfire, the side that's on the top actually looks like the throttle body blade looks like it's biased towards this side. So if it was to backfire, my guess is with the angle, if it backfired in intake, it just opened that, it just shoved that out of the way real quick. Where if it was absolutely flat, I don't know what it would do. And that's just an educated guess. That may not be why they keep them at an angle at all. Obviously it can't be perfectly flat, or it'd be hard to adjust. You'd have no idle adjustment, because it'd just be here, holes this big, blades this big. That's all you got. There's no adjusting it. So that's what I'm gonna do. Back that off, check it. I'm hoping I can back it off and then rock the blades, let it make a little mark. I'll probably get a Sharpie and mark it up, and just keep doing that and work it in. See how far we can go. Alright, learning very quick. I marked it with Sharpie, and then I could see where it was hitting it. It was hitting right there. You kind of really can't see. But where it was hitting, it was only hitting on this blade. So I was like, well, I'll start taking material. I was like, well, wait a minute. Now that I've moved it, maybe the throttle blades aren't as centered. Or at least now they'll have a better chance to center. And all I did was loosen the screws. And now it's hitting back on the stop, not on the bores. So there's a little more right there, just with a little work, just making sure these things are sitting in here centered. Back to it. I'm just going and going, but another tech tip when you're trying to figure out which one's tight, because I mean I'm doing this with a grinder, so you can't see that close, but no noise, that's the throttle blade that's tight. That one's not tight. Tight? Not tight. So we'll work this one a little more. I've still got a decent bit of angle in there, so I'm going to see how far I can take it. Hopefully I don't go too far. I've gone as far as I'm going to go with that. The throttle stop has got one thread sticking out of it, maybe. So that's it. I know I'm getting close angle wise. If I go much more, the way the blade's got that edge on it, right now we're hitting on this edge and this other edge. Too much more and we're going to be on the flat sides of that, and the blade's going to look smaller to the bore, and then we're going to be too far. So that's it. Time to stop. But now, get these out of here. Now I'm going to work on making the throttle shaft thinner. I'm not overly fond of this. I'm not going to go crazy, but I think I will knock the tips of this off. Let me get this out of here. I don't want to make it too flimsy, which I don't think you can. It's here. I might take this side down with the bolt heads. I might take it down to just above where the original bolt surface is. And this side, I don't know how much I'm going to touch this side. I like having enough meat there for the screw. I have one of these. I didn't go this far. This is the farthest I've ever taken one. I've cleaned them up before, but this is the most I've tried. I have filed these down a little bit before, and I learned my lesson the hard way. Whenever we put these bolts back in, the way this was kind of splayed out, when we put the bolts back in, we're finally done, we'll set the throttle body on something, and we'll make sure we got something stacked under the bolt. We don't want to bend anything, but we want something, the bolt sitting on something while it's all together, and then we'll take a punch and punch the end of the bolt splay it out. We want that to pinch. Because I had one on a truck on a regular intake. I had it on a kegger forever. And it was fine for like 3 years. Beat the hell out of it. And then I put that blower on. This was a full-size Ram truck. I put that blower on and I moved the throttle body from being here to mount it to the Eaton M122. And within a day it sucked in a throttle screw. 3 years sitting like this. Fine. Sit it like this? Nope, don't like that. So that's the lesson I learned from that. Make sure these stay in here. So I'm gonna get this marked up and kind of give it the best swing I want. I don't want to go too crazy. I don't have anything fancy. All I have is that belt sander. So I'll do what I can with that. Here's our modified one. There's the stock one. Modified open. You can see where I slimmed up the bores. Let's see. Not the bores, the shaft. Not a crap ton, just a little bit. And then I staked the ends of the bolts so they won't be coming out of there. Versus the stalker. Backside. On mine, I took all that ledge off. Smoothed it all out. Changed the angle a lot. Well, I don't know about a lot. But here's the throttle stop on my modified one, and here it is on the stock one. And it fits. I mean, the throttle blades, everything's set right, which means I opened up the bore as much as possible with this size throttle blade. So I don't know. I'm sure this should make a difference on the dyno. I hope. At least I hope so. Mine's just a 360, 10.5 to 1 compression, ported heads, 535 lift, 216, 224 duration, decent little cam. So hopefully that helps. I hope I'll be able to feel it. I don't know, but we're gonna get it on and see if we have any idle issues. We're gonna see what happens just right off the hit. I've got the throttle bodies damn near all the way closed. one of the next things I'm going to do, I'm going to take that throttle body. I changed my mind on cutting this stuff off. I don't feel like doing that with this one. That one I'm going to make that plate so I can get the bell mouth, or get the nice radius in there as much as possible. And then I want to make an intake so that my panel filter sits in this hole again, or something like that, so that my giant scoop is actually kind of doing something. Something else I'm thinking about doing is cutting an inch off the scoop, dropping an inch. It was hard to find this. I found it on eBay for like $100. Some guy makes them, but it really doesn't match the Dakota at all. Now I kind of like it because it is obnoxious, but it just doesn't match at all. I think if I made it a little lower profile, it wouldn't stick out like a sore thumb. But that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think. But that's gonna be it for this video. Hopefully that does something. If I can find a way to be able to flow those things so we have real numbers, if we can do that, I'll do it. I'll pull it back off and we'll do it. And hopefully the other one, once I make the bell mouths and everything, once I make it nice radius in, hopefully that's worth something. This isn't it's not a stroker. It's just a 360. It's a 365 or whatever, 30 over. But hopefully it makes a difference. Couldn't hurt. So if you hung in there this long, thank you for watching, and please like, subscribe. Look forward to some more videos.